Hey everybody, we are back at Ironman for our chapter 2 of Win the Day. So we're glad that you're back here with us. We had a great turnout last week in our Tuesday night group. We had 55 guys that came out. It's like one of the most we've ever had. And then Wednesday morning, another good crowd. So we're on a good roll here. We're glad you're here with us. And I want to invite you again to come out and join us on a Tuesday night or Wednesday morning if you can. If you can't, we're happy you're here with us online watching this. So today we're talking about your brave is someone else's breakthrough. So your bravery can be somebody else's breakthrough. The way that you take on the day has an impact, has a ripple effect on those people around you and those people that come after you. He says every move we make and every risk we take sets the stage for somebody else. So your brave actually is somebody else's breakthrough. And it made me think about a story. About 4 years ago, I've been wanting to get down to Mexico the whole time I had lived here. And my wife, who's from South Africa, who I thought would be a little more adventurous, was like, no, like I'm done with, the adventurous living after having grown up in Africa. And so anyway, after I wore her down eventually, because I know she loves the beach, I said, look, it's only like 3.5 hours to get there. They have condos right on the beach. It'll be easy. She said, okay, if we go there and you promise me all we're going to do is stay inside the condominium complex with the gates and the walls and all that, I'm fine. So I said, okay, good. So we got down there, and within a day, she's like, all right, I think I'm ready to go explore the town. So she's a little braver than what she let on. But once we got out and started seeing the town and seeing the local restaurants and the people and the beggars and just the vibrancy of the music and the smells and the shopping and everything, it was so cool. But as we drove around, I kept thinking and talking to her and saying, look, the Grove could do so much good down here. Think about all the possibilities. Look how we could come down as a men's group and make a difference down here. And she got it, and she caught the vision with me, and we came back. And now 4 years later, we've had probably over 200 men that have gone down there, and some families as well, and have helped, build houses and, work on churches and things like that, and helped with feeding programs and taking down hundreds of pairs of shoes for homeless people down there. And there's just been a lot of good that has come out of that. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here. I can't reach that far anyway. But I wanted to give an example that it took us a step of bravery to go out there. And now it's been a breakthrough for many men here in our church that are constantly saying to me, hey, when are we going back again? I want to get back down there. We want to do some more good. We want to finish up this shelter for abused women. That's one of the things that these guys keep asking me about. See, this has been a breakthrough in their minds for them. They're ready to get back down there and get going. 1 Chronicles 12:2 says, all of them were expert archers, and they could shoot arrows or sling stones with their left hand as well as their right. They were all relatives of Saul from the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, random verse, I know, but what he's saying here is that, only 1% of the world is born ambidextrous. Now, you got people here that are slinging stones and shooting arrows with their right hand and their left hand with great accuracy. And how did they get to that point? And that's one of the things we're going to look at here, is that there's going to be obstacles when we're flipping the script, when we're trying to do more and we want to do things better. There's going to be obstacles in our way, but one of the ways that we can get through those obstacles is through practice and through persistent practice. If you think about 1% of the world being ambidextrous, but yet how many switch hitters do we have playing baseball? How many basketball players can shoot, shots equally as well with their left hand as they can with their right hand? Soccer players kicking the ball with their right foot as well as their left foot. It takes hours and hours of practice. Malcolm Gladwell wrote in Tipping Point, there's a kind of magic number of 10,000 hours of practice that you have to put into something before you become an expert at it. And I think that's one of the keys here. So practice does not make perfect. My basketball coach in high school used to say, perfect practice makes perfect. And I would say to him, his name was Coach Ray too, he wasn't related, but I'd say, Coach, how can we practice perfectly? Nobody's perfect, as a typical high schooler would say something like that. He's like, look, you do the things I tell you to do, and you're going to be fine. Just practice good habits rather than bad habits. I was in Flagstaff this past weekend helping my daughter get moved in at Northern Arizona University, and I took my younger son, who's 12, and everywhere we go these days, he has a basketball with him. So we found a local park, and we started shooting, and there was a high school kid there who was shooting, and he was not any good at all. He was missing almost all of his shots. And then my son, who's had, lots of practice, I wouldn't say 10,000 hours, but he walked out, and he's had a lot of good coaching through his young life, and he's just knocking down shot after shot after shot. And another dad came over and goes, "Man, your son's really good," and I thought, well, thank you, I don't know what to say in those situations really, but yeah, he puts in a lot of work, and he does. But I wanted to help the other kid. I wanted to say, look, man, you're doing it wrong. No matter how many times you shoot the ball like this, it's not going to go in. You're shooting the ball like a line drive. So I kind of let it go. The next day, we had some free time. We went back to the park, and there's the kid again. The same kid on the court shooting the same shots over and over and over, making about 1 out of every 10 shots. And I didn't know whether to say anything or not, but the point is you're not going to get better at something if you continue to practice it poorly. You have to practice everything that you do in the right way. And we're going to go through these 3 steps that's called deliberate practice. So if we're going to get good at something, we have to be deliberate about it. And the first dimension of this, so it's 3-dimensional. The first dimension is well-defined goals. Okay, it has to be something measurable. For instance, if you're shooting baskets, okay, how many free throws did I make out of 100? Write it down. I made 60 today. I made 65 the next day. I made 70 the next day. Okay, there's a measurable goal. And if your goal is to make 80 out of 100, then you're getting close to that. The second dimension is called reverse engineering. It's studying the best practices of others and repeating what they do and imitating what they do. So it's reverse engineering, seeing what works and how did they get to that point where that really worked for them. Okay, the third dimension is something we all can do, but some of us don't have it in us, is effort. Do you have the effort to make yourself better at something? Do you have the effort to put into this day? If you're going to win the day, do you have what it takes to put in there? As a basketball coach, we used to say, do you have the 3 E's? Okay, when we go out today, let's practice the 3 E's: energy, effort, and enthusiasm. Okay, every time you get on the court, okay, these are the 3 things you should put into practice. And we should approach every day like that with the 3 E's: energy, effort, and enthusiasm. And 2, we can't just do the things that we're good at. Okay, we have to take on things that we're also not good at. You have to attempt things that are beyond your ability, and you have to go at it hard. There's studies that show if you don't go at least 70% of effort, you're not going to get any better. It's going to stay the status quo. And there's no point where your performance it gets maxed out, like, I can't get any better. Okay, we're never going to get to that point. So additional practice does lead to further improvement if it's good practice, and if it's practice that's done well. You see, God wants to use you. He wants to use me at the point of giftedness that he has gifted us for sure. Okay, some of us are really good in some things. Some of us are not good in other things. We're a natural in some things. We're terrible in other things. But God also wants to use you in your point of weakness. Why? Because this is where God steps up and his power is made perfect through you. Okay, you have to rely on God when it's not something that you're very good at, right? We had a guy who was a soccer player in Malawi when I was there, and his name was Tim, and I think they called him Timo or Timmer or something like that. Now, I coached basketball at this particular time. At one point, I had coached a soccer team years before when I lived there, but at this time, I was just a basketball player, basketball coach. And we had done a field day on a Saturday not long before I discovered Timmer. And one of the things during this field day was an obstacle course. Well, during the obstacle course, one of the things they had to do was climb up the tires of this big lorry, they called it, a big truck, flatbed, climb over it and go down on the other side. So all the other participants are climbing up these big tires and climbing on. Timmer took a running jump and landed in the middle of the flatbed without touching any of the tires. It was the equivalent of like doing a high jump of going up 5-6 feet in the air and landing on your feet. This guy was amazing. So I brought him into the gym the next day and I said, "Hey, Timmer, man, I want to get you on the basketball team. I think if you can jump like that." He's like, "No, coach, man, I'm a soccer player." I said, "Well, look, do me a favor. Let me see how high you can jump. Jump up there and just see if you can touch the rim. So Timmer jumps up, he hits his elbow on the rim. Okay, now Malawians aren't known for like being real tall or guys that could jump that well or whatever. They're good at a lot of things, but being a dunker wasn't really one of them. So I handed Timmer a ball. I said, see if you can take this ball and put it over the rim. And of course he did it. He did it super easy. It reminded me of that scene from Airplane when those guys are dunking the ball behind their head and all that. So Timmer was a natural jumper, but that was it. I tried to talk Timmer into becoming a basketball player. He had no interest. And I thought, what a waste. I mean, in soccer, you've got maybe a couple opportunities a game to jump up and get a header, right? But in basketball, it's rebounding, it's blocking shots, it's dunking the ball, it's all these things. And Timmer wasn't interested. And I thought, man, you're such a natural. Timmer, why aren't you playing for my basketball team? But I couldn't make him do it. But oftentimes, one of the things that maybe Timmer had a little of this going through is that one of the biggest obstacles is our negative thinking. Maybe for him it was thinking, man, I can't play basketball. I'm not good enough to do that. But we have these self-fulfilling prophecies. The author here writes that he read a study that 80% of our thoughts during a day are negative. Okay, so if you are what you eat on a nutritional side, you also are what you think on the psychological side. We've got to tune out all that negative self-talk. There's a writer, author, who's also a preacher in Texas, and I'm going to show you a slide of his book right now. Okay, here's the slide. Okay, I love the guy as a writer, but every book he writes, he puts a big cheesy picture of himself right on the cover. That's why all the duct tape is over it. I say that just as a joke, but I love the way he writes. He's super positive. I get really motivated when I read his books. It's not all I want to read, but it's one of the things that I supplement with the Bible and other books that I want to read because he fires me up. It gets me going. It makes me feel like I can go out and conquer the world. And we need people like that in our lives. We need people that are going to motivate us to go out there and be more than we think we can do. Henry Ford was right when he said, whether you think you can do something or you can't do something, you're right. Okay? You can either in your mind win it or lose it. Okay? So consciously or subconsciously, we justify our actions like this. We say, well, that's just the way I'm wired. Or, I've always done it like that, so I'm just going to keep doing it that way. But if we want God to do something different and something new in our lives, we have to do new things. We have to try new things for God and trust Him and His power that He's going to help us through that. But everything we do, everything we think is a two-sided coin. And whatever happens to us, it can make us or it can break us. Okay, we can learn from those obstacles or we can turn away and just decide we're not going to do it. But God can flip the script for us. He can flip the script for you. Okay, maybe it's something you think you can't do or something you've been thinking about doing but didn't have the courage to do it. Remember the story of David and Goliath. Okay, that was a script flipper for sure. But when you come up against a giant, it's not just you coming up as a giant. It's you in Christ coming up against the giant. And Christ, as you know, is undefeated. Okay, he's nobody's underdog. David was not an underdog in this story by any means. He will turn your weakness into a strength. And that's how our brave becomes somebody else's breakthrough. Remember the lions and the bears that David had to practice on before he met Goliath? Remember Saul came up to him and said, "Who are you to think you can beat him?" He said, No, look, God's delivered me from the bear and the lion. I can handle this guy. Okay, so he had some obstacles along the way. And this is a quote, and this is a slide that's coming up right now. It says this, it says, everything in your past is preparation for something in your future. Now let me repeat that. Everything in your past is preparation for something in your future. It's the Goliath in front of us that helps us to discover the David that is within us. Okay, it's the Goliath in front of us that helps us to discover the David that's within us. Now, I want to finish with this. This is my conclusion. Ephesians 5:16 says, it's a paraphrased version here, says, make the most of every opportunity. Don't be vague and thoughtless, but live with purpose and live accurately. Okay, live with purpose and live accurately. We're not meant to live vague or distracted or be the kind of person who just says, well, let's just kind of wait and see what happens. Don't you hate the expression, it is what it is? That's one of my top 10 least favorite expressions that people say these days. It is what it is. Well, that's vague. It can't be any more vague than that. It isn't what it is, okay? Make it what you want it to be. Okay, we're supposed to be focused. We're supposed to be making the most of every opportunity that we get. Staying on social media for hours at a time, catching up on the latest gossip and all that kind of stuff is not redeeming our time well. Okay, you know it, I know it, but yet we still do it sometimes. Okay, this is a call to action for us to get focused, for us to get organized, for us to set our goals, for us to make our plans. You know, God could have chosen anybody to be right here, but he chose you, and he chose the people that are around you to be in contact with you. I want to read this quote from Deion Sanders, coach for Jackson State University Tigers in my hometown of Jackson, Mississippi. I love Deion. I always have. Some people he's rubbed the wrong way along his life, but check out this quote from Deion Sanders. He says this. He says, the reason you stay up all night watching TV, playing video games, and on the phone is because you ain't done nothing all day that requires energy, focus, and passion. When are you going to make a difference or be the reason life is better for others? You only get one shot at life, baby. Isn't that awesome? You get one shot at this, and the reason you're staying up all night, okay, you can't sleep because you haven't done anything productive during the day. When we go to bed at night and we can look at ourselves and say, you know, I've won today, okay? When we can go back and answer those questions, did I take steps towards my goal? Was I a blessing to somebody else? Did I push myself? Did I challenge myself? Did I get out of my comfort zone a little bit today? Did I expend energy, effort, and enthusiasm in everything that I was doing? When we go to bed at night like that, we know that we've won the day. Guys, thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you in Ironman, hopefully one of our studies live. Otherwise, we'll catch you next week.